All right, guys, the new banner is out. I'm sure those of you that were on my Twitch stream last night watched my pulls. They were pretty epic, so don't forget to check that out. But I'm here to give you guys my personal banner review for Hi-Nu Gundam, Force Impulse, and as well as Bright Noah with Raw Cailum. What's up, everybody? Fortexfiend here, and welcome back again to another video on SD Gundam G Generation Eternal. And like I said, I'm going to be giving you guys my honest opinion and reviewing the banner now that we have all the details about the units, now that we've had a chance for those of us that pulled the units to use them in combat. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into it here. I'm going to start things off with the limited time UR supporter warship. So this warship, I would say objectively, it is a good warship for a limited. However, a lot of people have already been comparing it to Eternal and Lacus because Eternal and Lacus, for those of us that actually acquired it when it was out, did really make quite a bit of an impact because that one-shot killer tag is very, very good. There's a lot of strong units in that particular tag. And not only that, but it has HP restoration versus having energy restoration. And for content overall, I would even say, even for PvE content, like some of the harder PvE content, I would prioritize the HP restoration over the energy restoration, because if you're able to prolong the survivability of your unit, it makes it that much easier to be able to beat the harder content. For example, Eternal Road Experts, if you have healing, it's definitely better. Energy restoration by no means is bad, but objectively, speaking, I think this is a good warship. It's just not as good as the last limited one that we got. But if you happen to pull it, the tag that it does increase the stats for does have some really, really strong units on there. You have Unicorn, you have, Hi-Nu Gundam, Sazabi's on there too, the O, Zeta. So you got some really, really good contenders there if you're trying to build a team based on new type machines. So good ship, just not as good as Eternal and Lacus, in my opinion. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about Force Impulse. So this is our new supporter unit. Very, very cool design. I like how there's 3 different units that are involved in this particular one. Overall, it has some pretty good stats. I like how it has 10,000 attack and the mobility is really high on this. In terms of its passives, it has good mobility. It has that HP restoration and energy restoration, which I think is really cool that this unit has a way to self-sustain, so that way it's not running out of steam while also trying to support. And then it has variable shift armor, which is, great having that mitigation because you want the unit to be able to survive as long as possible. So if it gets hit with physical attacks, it's going to be reduced. It's going to be reducing that damage. And not only that, but it also has that mechanism shield defend, which is always nice to have that. Again, more survivability, more damage mitigation. In terms of terrain, I would say it's excellent. It has full access to space, air, and land with minimal access to underwater. In terms of its skills, all silhouette attack is great. It has absolute hit, which is awesome. So no swaying around here if you're talking about PvP, because we're going to be inflicting that defense down no matter what, as long as the AI for Master League actually uses it. And 35% defense down is always something nice to have. And then Barrage is its other one. So damage taken from special weapons is up by 25% if you inflict this debuff. Special and Beam are the ones that I've seen that a lot of the so-called meta tier units tend to have with their EX skill. So this is definitely a great unit to have if you have this particular debuff. Now, in terms of its tags, this is where I see this unit kind of being not as desirable. So the tags that it has is it has lightning fast, which there is a lightning fast ship out there if you manage to pull it, and it has speed. And that's about it in terms of tags that it stands out for me. A little bit disappointing that it doesn't have something else, like for example the ever so famous one-shot killer, or tough as nails, for example. We've seen that. So it does have lightning fast, I will give it that. But other than that, the tags, for me, in my opinion, leave a little bit more to be desired when we're comparing it to some of the other supporter units that have access to other tags, making them more flexible in terms of choosing the UR supporter warship. So the unit itself, very, very solid. I wouldn't say it's the best supporter unit out there, but it definitely does have, that good defense down, good terrain, good attack stat. It's just the tags for me is what kind of sets it back. Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Hi-Nu Gundam now, which is the star of the show. I'll be talking about the pilots right after this because I did pull both units. I did do a little bit more off-pulling from the stream and the videos and stuff. So I did manage to get all the units because I want to showcase them to you guys. So right off the bat, pretty solid attack stat. Not the highest that we've seen. Strike Freedom's attack is actually a little bit higher than this one's attack. terrain capability wise, so it has full access to land and space. Unfortunately, you can't use this in the air, and it does have that halved usability underwater. Now, in terms of its passives, I think its passives for being an attacking type limited unit, very, very good. Increased attack. The fin funnel barrier is really, really strong because there's a lot of beam range weapons that you can anticipate to get hit with, even for PvP. And then now I know that there's the EX skills that bypass that mitigation, but again, the AI doesn't always use that. So if it gets hit with beam range, it reduces the damage by 60%, which that's pretty significant if you think about it, and really significant as well if you're taking this to specific Eternal Road experts where this unit can be used. And it does have Psycho Frame level 2 as well, which I absolutely love it because it increases its own innate accuracy and evasion. So this thing can actually have some decent natural evasion, which makes it very, very solid. In terms of its weapon skills that I personally think make this unit really stand out, the first one is Hyper Mega Bazooka Launcher. It has good coverage right there with a decent power at 5400, assuming you've fully leveled up its weapon skill. Not as good as the GPO-2A as that big nuke, but it is pretty good in terms of having access to an AoE attack, and it's absolute hit. So again, no evading this, especially if this is used for PvP. And then afterwards, it's Hyper Mega Bazooka Launcher. Pretty much very, very strong. It has a base power of 70-80. Its range is at 4. Would have been nice if it was at 5 for being an EX skill, but if you pair this up with its signature pilot, you don't have to worry about that. So it gets up to a 20% increase when you are, the further you are away. It does have that, damage mitigation nullification. So doesn't matter what kind of damage mitigation the enemy unit has, going to bypass that, and it also does have absolute hit, so it's always going to hit. You can't evade this. Very, very good. And then it has spin funnels as well, which I actually really like using this. It has a good range at up to 5, and it also has a critical damage by 30%. So it's a highly offensive unit. Very, very good. Also has another form of damage mitigation, which I forgot to mention, which again, that's shield defense. Again, great for survivability. And then afterwards, its tags are actually really solid. So not only does it have new type machine, but it also has Saikamu and it has lightning fast. So there's 3 warships that are non-series that you could definitely use this with that are very, very good. So overall, it's a very, very powerful unit. I think it definitely gives Strike Freedom a run for its money. Now, do I think it's better than Strike Freedom? I think Strike Freedom edges it out just by a little bit, and because of one thing. It's because of that one-shot killer tag. Because right now, with what we currently have in game with the UR supporter warships, Eternal and Lacus are still at the top. Again, the limited warship that you can use with this, which is the Bright Noah and Rock Cailum, it's good, and objectively, it has the same effect as the Eternal and Lacus, but again, it's that energy restoration that kind of holds it back. So not having that one-shot killer tag, I'm gonna have to give the slight edge to Strike Freedom. However, I think that Hi-Nu Gundam does out damage the Strike Freedom unit if we're gonna talk about damage, because first of all, its most powerful ability, its EX ability, already has a higher base power at what was that 70-80, or the Strike Freedom at level 5 upgrade is around 6600. And then if you factor in that 20% extra additional weapon damage the farther you are, the Hi-Nu Gundam still outshines it. In terms of terrain capability, Strike Freedom is going to be better because it does have access to air. But all in all, I think Strike Freedom is still just a little bit better, but Hi-Nu Gundam definitely gives it a run for its money. And if later down the line we get a limited supporter warship, or let's say Lightning Fast, or Saikamu, or even new type that has the HP restoration, then things would definitely shift from there. But for now, Strike Freedom is still a little bit better, but Hi-Nu is definitely a very, very strong unit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about the pilots now. And again, before I talk about the pilots, I do want to point out, some people are saying, shouldn't you talk about the SSR units in this? I have a separate video for that, and the reason why I don't cover the brand new SSRs that come with pilots is because you're not chasing after those when you're pulling on these banners with limited units. So there's really no reason for me to talk about them because those units are going to be in future banners anyways. So I will have a separate video for them once I've been able to build them up and everything. But in terms of these banner reviews, I don't talk about them. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our brand new pilots. We're going to start off with Shinn Asuka. Unfortunately, I couldn't get him all the way to level 100, but we're going to take a look at his skills. So for a supporter pilot, he's pretty loaded. He has sway, he has boost range, which increases his range by 1, and he has attack burst level 4. I mean, what more can you ask in terms of like increasing his offensive capabilities, as well as increasing his, being able to position him better so he doesn't get counterattacked. And also he has sway, just in case you're concerned about, incoming damage, especially for PvE. That's really, really good. I think that's really stacked for a support. It's kind of debatable which is better, the MP increase or attack burst. I think MP increase, at the beginning for like, fast burst damage is good, but later down the line, it kind of evens itself out. So having that attack burst with that SP5 is really, really solid in my opinion. All right, and in terms of his passives, support attack, very standard. Coordinator level 4, increased awaken reaction, which is great. And then finally, his EX character ability, he has a natural +1 support. So he doesn't need to be piloting a specific tag. He just has that, which I think is awesome. And then if he's piloting his own unit, which is a Force Impulse, if at any time HP falls below 50%, he essentially gets an extra lifeline. So I'm about to, this might be a hot take, but in my opinion, especially if you have him with his own unit, he could arguably be the best supporter pilot that we have currently. And if you stack him up against like Captimus Shiroko or stack him up against like Asuna, I think Shinn right now might be the best. Assuming that you're using him with his own unit. You can use him with other units, which is, always an option. But if you're using him with his own, he could arguably be the best supporter pilot that we currently have. His skills are stacked, great passives, and overall, I think the prize in terms of pilots, if you are trying to go after Force Impulse, is definitely this pilot. This pilot is definitely one of the things that shines for the banner in terms of pilot. All right, now we're going to go ahead and take a look at Amuro, the attacker version. So right off the bat, very, very good awaken. Solid reaction, which is really, really good. In terms of his skills, I think they needed to balance this guy out, because when I saw MP level 5 and attack burst level 5, I was like, wow, that is crazy. And then they had to give him energy charge. I get it. If they gave him like sway or even like HP restoration or just something like that, this pilot would have been cracked. I still think he is, but I think the energy charge level 4 is there to kind of balance him out. But all in all, those are really, really good skills, especially the first two. And for an offensive type pilot, very, very strong. Now, his passives are very good as well. Increased damage dealt by 20%. New type level 5, so his awakening and reaction are increased by 25%. And then his EX character ability, or his final passive, is what really makes him shine. So he has a natural chance step, so it doesn't matter what he's piloting. He's always going to have that. It doesn't matter what tag. And then when he's piloting his own unit, which is a Hi-Nu Gundam, if his vigor is supercharged or higher, it automatically increases the max range of his beam or special weapons by 1. That is insane. So as long as you're keeping his tension at that supercharge or higher, he has increased range to his beam and special weapons, which is absolutely crazy. And then he also does have a tag specific with his final passive. So if he's piloting anything that is EFSF UC, he gets reduced damage taken by 15%. So definitely a really, really good pilot. Do I think he's better than Kira though? Again, it's subjective. I think Amuro overall will deal more damage when he's piloting his own unit, or maybe any unit for that matter. But I do think Kira is still slightly ahead, and it's because of sway. Now I know sway is kind of not as good in PvP, especially because the AI tends to prioritize your harder hitting skills, which most of them have absolute hit. But for PvE, I do think that Kira is slightly a bit more desirable than Amuro, only because of the additional survivability with sway. But damage-wise, Amuro takes it. In my opinion, I think Amuro takes it. But you guys let me know down below. So overall, my review on the banner, what do I think? Is it worth it? Should players be considering to pull? If you are free to play, and let's say you missed out on Eternal and Lacus and you missed out on Strike Freedom, I think it's a really good banner to consider pulling for, especially if one of these units are your favorite. I think it's a very, very good banner. Very, very powerful attacker. That support pilot is excellent. The ship itself is still decent. It's not as good, again, as Eternal and Lacus because of the lack of HP healing, but if you manage to pull it, it's still a really, really good ship, with the tag being fairly good because there's some really good units with new type machine. All in all, very, very good banner. If you manage to pull, one of the new units, definitely increasing the power of your roster and your team building, because Both of the units are really good, with the pilots also being very, very excellent. But you guys let me know down below what you guys think of this banner. Again, I will have a separate video for those new SSRs. I did not forget about them. It's just we don't objectively chase the SSRs on these banner. We're trying, if you're pulling on the banner, you're pulling for the URs. But let me know down below what you guys think. Let me know if you pulled. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are so far after using these units, if you managed to get them. Let me know what your plans are for future content and how you're going to use them, because I'd love to hear it all. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and stay blessed, everybody.
Hi-Nu Gundam は伊達じゃない。俺はまだ人類に絶望もしちゃいない。 こで手間取ってはいら
すまんがみんなの命をくれ。
これ以上の抵抗をやめろ。直撃させるかファンネル。接続完了。ハイパーランチャー始動するぞ。ハイニューガンダムは伊達じゃない。